Welcome, everyone, to day two's Thought Leadership Series, Lunch Bites. We're rocking and rolling today, talking about allergens, talking about cultures of commitments, talking about working smarter, not harder. That sounds really good. And I can't wait to get rolling. I hope you've got your notepads ready, your beverages full, because we are talking ROIs. Get involved, stay involved. Make your questions and comments known in the chat, because over the next hour or so, you'll hear from 3 expert speakers and sponsor partners, each with their own rapid fire lunch bite session. And I'm so excited to kick off our first one, entitled Food Allergens, Tackling an Ever Evolving Challenge in Food Manufacturing. I'm so excited to welcome to the stage Tracy Sheehan of Mario Nutrisciences. Welcome.
Thank you, Rachel, and great to be with you all this morning or this afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. And so we'll start with the slides. If you can get the next slide, that'd be great. Thank you. So if we look at from a U.S. perspective only to start with, the big 8 allergens, we've been knowing what those are for 15 years and managing those very effectively. But if we look at the prevalence of people who have those food allergies, I think it's important that we kind of rank with even within the top 8, the prevalence of people who have those allergies. So the number one food allergy in the US is peanut at 2.2%, and then milk at 1.9, and it goes down from there, with soy being the least prevalent allergy at 0.5%. Well, a lot of people question this big 8 list because, as you know, the first 3 on the next side are sesame, mustard, and triticale. Those are included in cereals with gluten, are included in the Canada regulations. So a number of people petitioned the FDA to actually get sesame added to the big 8. And the prevalence of sesame allergy, you can see in the US, is 0.2%, slightly under where soy is. But then if we look at the regulations globally, we've got a wide variety. We've got ingredients like buckwheat. That are considered an allergen in Japan, celery, lupin, those are in Europe, even mango and peach in some countries. So it's a wide variety of allergens that we have to manage as food companies. And also, as a certification body for auditing, we need to make sure that we're tracking all the locations that ingredients are purchased from in when we do the audits, and we have to look at where are all the foods exported to and make sure that the allergens listed comply with the country's regulations, both for the imports and the exports. So it is challenging. Next slide. So recently, sesame was added by the U.S. Congress. They voted to have sesame added, and it will become regulated in 2023. So we've got a little bit of time to make sure that we get all our programs in place and updated to manage sesame as an allergen. But I want to just point out, for those that are global food companies, you know this already, but sesame is regulated globally as a major allergen in 30 different countries. The European Union primarily, Canada, Australia, many different countries have sesame already as an allergen. So as you're sourcing ingredients, you need to know that many countries do have sesame as an allergy, but some do not. So you want to make sure you include sesame specifically when you ask your ingredient suppliers about what allergens they have to be ready for the 2023 compliance. Next slide. So, where are allergen recalls happening? I think it's really important for your risk assessment in allergen management to know where the recall data points us. So, if you look at a 2020 analysis, we have a database called Safety HUD. It tracks all the global recalls around the world and tracks it by country of origin as well as country that it's shipped to. So, if we look at it, the number one reason for recall was milk, with 256 6 recalls happening around the world, followed by egg, soy, peanut, and wheat. And then if we look at the food types, as you can expect, a lot of the prepared dishes, confectionery, cereal, bakery, and soups are the most common reason or types of foods where they have allergens. The database does track the risk by food country when you're sourcing an ingredient based on the recalls as an option. Next slide. So, a lot of people think, oh, we don't need to worry about sesame, there's no recalls, but that's actually not true. There have been a number of recalls around the world for sesame. The United Kingdom, much of Europe has been recalling sesame for the allergen reason for many recalls, but also they've had some issues with ethylene oxide as a contaminant according to the European regulations. So there's a lot going on with sesame right now that you should be aware of and preparing for as you're starting to regulate that as one of the major allergens in the US. And next slide. So, what can we do about all these changing allergen regulations? You want to make sure that you're modifying your allergen control plans. 21 CFR 117 is the current good manufacturing practices. It has all of the requirements for allergen control in there. You would have known this from managing the previous Big Eight, but it's important that you modify your programs for CGMPs to include the sesame going forward. You want to modify your HACCP plans. So many companies may not have identified sesame as a major allergen in their HACCP plan, whereas they will going forward. And then, you should have milk and tree nuts and other things as you use them. You want to conduct allergen cleaning validation studies, and I'll spend just a minute there. If you look at the major food allergens, if you're switching between an allergen food and a non allergen food, you want to try to assess the cleaning. Now, that can be done through a wide variety of methodologies. There are allergen specific test kits for each of the major allergens, including sesame, that you can run. If you have an allergen that you are using that you think doesn't have a test kit, there are other alternatives, and we can help you with that if needed. You want to make sure, and this is the most common reason for recalls, is the packaging. So you want to make sure you're updating and reviewing those label changes. Are the ingredient statements correct? Do you need to add a supplemental allergen statement to a product like a bakery product where before you didn't consider sesame an allergen? Are you looking at allergen-free claims? So some companies make, say, peanut-free, gluten-free, other statements. You want to make sure that all the allergens are considered when you're making those statements, and how you want to handle that labeling. And then you want to change, the audits will change for the new allergens. So you want to modify your internal audit that you're using for compliance with SQF and also to improve your own systems. The GFSI audit or SQF audit will change and will include all of the major allergens as the new regulation comes into effect. So you want to be prepared for that. Many of the customer audits are now changing. We're seeing an adaptation of some of the key customer add-ons as addendums to the audits. And then as you do supplier audits, you want to make sure that you're adding sesame or what other allergens you're dealing with globally to that list for your supplier audits. And whether you do them yourselves or you use a third party audit company. You just want to make sure that you're considering all the risks from an allergen perspective in those supplier assessments. And then there is something that's a little bit newer on the market, but there are gluten-free allergen assessments and there are allergen-free audits. So things like peanut-free or milk-free. There are companies that can come and help you do an assessment of whether you think you meet that claim. And a lot of people look within the four walls of the manufacturing facility, and that is great. But sometimes the highest risk comes from suppliers. So if you're getting one of those gluten-free or allergen-free type of audits, you want to make sure that your auditing body considers all of the allergens with the suppliers as well. And next slide. Thanks. One of the new GFSI benchmark requirements is that for companies that have internal labs or using external labs, they either need to have ISO 17025 accreditation for the lab and include proficiency testing or be compliant with ISO like procedures. So for ISO 17025, we have a very large company that does lab testing. We have 100 labs and they're all accredited ISO. What that means is they'll be doing allergen food safety proficiency testing, and you have to interpret that carefully and objectively, mainly due to matrix variations. So when you're measuring the amount of milk in a product for a bakery product, it's completely different than measuring something like a soup. And you want to make sure that the lab you're using or your internal lab has done some matrix validations just to make sure that allergen can be detected effectively out of the matrix. There are some limitations to some of the kits. We won't get into that in detail, but feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. In the ways that the kits measure the allergens, whether they're measuring protein or the entire allergen or specific parts of a protein, as well as some of them are quantitative and some are qualitative. So you want to make sure you're using the right test for the right concern. And then, in the absence of suitable proficiency testing options, what's the lab doing instead? So, let's say you're doing allergen testing for an allergen that you can't find a proficiency test for. You can look at doing round robin testing. So, if your lab can send samples in and we can do some comparisons, or you can do blind internal spike. So, those are just some of the ways to look at meeting the ISO 17025 accreditation target that's part of the new GFSI benchmark standard. And next slide. One of the keys to allergen management is really employees. What are they doing, and how can they protect your brand to make sure that we're doing the right thing? So, MaryU offers public courses specifically to allergen training, and we have a global approach to that. So, we go through regulations that are in different countries. We have public classes online, customized courses. So if you want something specific where you can ask questions just about your business, we can do that. And then testing for competency in all of our courses. We have live line observations of label change procedures to demonstrate competency. Maintaining documentation records to demonstrate to an inspector or auditor or customer. And I think it's really important as you train employees, you want to make sure that they understand what you're doing. So you can also look at different languages and different ways of offering the information because it really needs to be on a routine basis. Allergens can change in your facilities tomorrow based on new ingredients that come in, new product development. You just want to make sure that you're always on top of the changes that are occurring with allergens. And then, we can offer validation studies, labeling experts. If you're looking at someone to just review your current labels or develop them from scratch, we can do that. And next slide. All right. Thank you very much. And I appreciate your time.
Let me make sure. Tracy, thank you so much. I'm not going to lie, I never have thought about the sesame allergies, but being able to track them, having the language is inclusivity of your training, I think it's phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time. And folks, let's give it up again in the chat for Tracy because we're rolling right into our next speaker. Session where I think we can all agree working smarter, not harder. That's the goal. So, presenting their session, How to Make Food Safety Smarter, welcome Prasant Prusti of Smart Food Safe to SQF Unites.
Thank you, Russell, and good morning, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, which part of the time zone you are. My name is Prashant, and let me start my presentation with a small story. I was a SQA practitioner at one point in my life, and I'm pretty sure all those SQF certified sites we have here, We all know the pain and the challenges to, to maintain a SQF certification. The amount of paperwork, the amount of record keeping. So I always wondered, is there a better way to do my job? Is there a better way? Is there a smarter way to effectively implement the SQF system? And with that thought process, I'm going to present Smart Food Safe, how we are building technology to make sure that your SQF program in particular becomes smarter. Okay, next slide. So I guess we all know today the social media has changed the world. And look at FDA, CDC, Health Canada, USDA, we all are on social media. And imagine when a consumer can go online and tag a company or tag CDC or tag FDA saying that, hey, you know what? I am having challenges with this product. Imagine the kind of bad reputation it can bring to your brand by having a small mistake. So how do we get better? How do you make sure that the customer requirements, the changing regulatory needs, the changing SQF requirements, the changing GFSI needs are met without adding cost to our food safety program? Next. So the problem statement is very clear. As I rightly said, that we are driving towards creating a strong food safety culture. So what does that mean? That means every elements, every sections of the food safety supply chain needs to interact, needs to take ownership of their part. And with human being involved in the entire supply chain, we always have challenge. There is a potential to make a mistake. And how do you solve? How do you eradicate, or how do you avoid those mistakes with technology? Is something what I'm going to present next. Okay, so I guess this slide is I think not new to anyone here. Imagine I walked into my office and I'm asking, hey Google, tell me the temperature of my freezer. Tell me the metal detector check, has that been done? Or show me my non-compliances from my this morning pre-operational inspection record. Can you do that? Imagine how would that change our life without going through paperwork, without going through documentations. And as we are living in the world of technology, we all have a smartphone, and we have evolved from the wheel invention till a self-driving car. So why not with food safety? Why can't we integrate technology with food safety to make food safety smarter, or in particular to make our SQF program smarter? Next. Okay, so what are the challenges? Food safety is evolving based on the research, technological advancement, investigation findings, and the rapidness of detection. So the requirements from food safety expectations are changing. And as we all know, when it comes to food processing industry, majority are small to medium scale industry. And even though they want to do the right thing, most of the time it's the know-how and the knowledge gap. I was a SQL practitioner at one point, and when I was doing my vendor qualification around the world, I see that most of the company are still using traditional paper-based record keeping. And the problem with a paper-based record keeping, they don't talk to each other. They don't give you a trend analysis. They don't give you notifications. And so the requirement to make a rapid decision based on the facts and figures are the biggest challenge with a paper-based record keeping. Next. So what are the opportunities? As we saw that technology is evolving, and we can make food safety affordable with technology, and that is what Smart Food Safe believes in. Not to add cost, but to save cost by use of technology. And I have a case study down the line I would like to present. At the same time, we also have KPIs, real-time data analysis, early warnings. Let me share another story here. When I was a SQF practitioner, I was able to reduce my SQF implementation time or SQF program maintenance time by 30 to 50% lesser by using small technological enhancement like scheduling, audit log, notifications, and workflow. We all know that as part of a SQL program, we need to make sure that a action has been completed as required. How do I do that? Let's put on my calendar, make a scheduling, reoccurring scheduling, and I go back to the schedule and see, did I do my job or not? Did the person I assigned my job did they do it or not? So there are small features we could bring in to without adding any technology, which could improve our escape program maintenance time by 30 to 50%. And imagine if you add technological platform, how much time it could save from a day of an SQF practitioner or a quality manager by relying on the technology. So based on where once you make digitalize all your data, so then the beauty of data analysis, the beauty of trend analysis, the beauty of data science, or we can implement to make decision making much more quicker and smarter. Next. Okay, so we all know about Industry 4.0, and people who are not aware of Industry 4.0, as you can see here, it started from 1784, Industry 1.0, and now we are at Industry 4.0. As Pierre from BTC says, monitor and control your machinery and equipment in real time by putting sensors at each step. And can we apply that to our SQF program? Can we apply that to our food safety program? Of course, yes, we can do that. And I am going to share a couple of examples. How can we use IoT-enabled sensors on our day-to-day food safety program to make our SQF program smarter? Next. So I guess IoT is nothing but Internet of Things. I guess that is very common terminology we see being used on a daily basis. It's basically a bunch of devices are talking to each other. And if you can think about in our food processing plant, what are the devices we have? How can we integrate those together is something will help us to understand the application. Next. Okay, so IoT, as I explained, it's Internet of Things and basically connected devices over the internet. Next. We can apply for food safety, logistic, supply chain transparency, production and storage, waste reduction, and farming. Next. So the first example comes to my mind is the temperature data logger. Temperature is one of the very important factors when it comes to food safety, and we use on a day-to-day basis. So how can we use the IoT-enabled temperature data logger to our food safety program? Not only use, we have to integrate to our food safety program so that we do not have to go and manually check the temperature. And my case study is based on this in the following slides. Color sensor, I think there are already applications to quality defects by using laser shutters. We can also enhance the same thing for food safety hazards like physical hazards or microbial hazard. That is something a very interesting discussion going on, and the science has not got there. But I know that a lot of people are working in the background. How do I use a sensor to detect a microbiology? Next, moisture and humidity. That's something we spoke about, that if you can have a sensor to detect real-time moisture and humidity on the line, imagine the time I need to take the sample and come back to my laboratory, do the analysis. If it's not compatible, go back and say, you know what, it's not good, stop the line or rework. We could avoid those rework and the unnecessary the time we spend on manual monitoring. Real-time NIR. We all know that NIR can do a lot of analysis at the same time for production and quality. How about inbuilt into our production line, so that we can see what is going on in terms of our quality parameters? GPS tracking, that is something we are already using it. Imagine if I can put my GPS tracker in my supply chain, I will have real-time access. Where is my raw materials? Where is my packaging materials in transit? Net weight, we have our weight checker. If you can integrate to our weight check record, imagine nobody has to go and check the net weight on a daily basis. You can verify, but the daily weight check can be eliminated. And more importantly, metal detector. Imagine that if you can detect, if you can log each and every incidence of the metal contamination in your metal detector. I know that it's being there are companies are already providing you a standalone metal detection software, but it is not integrated to your metal detector record. You still going and checking your metal detector, and companies who do not have that, if you can integrate to our metal detector record, I'll be able to reduce that paperwork from my daily records. Next, proximity sensors. As you know that if you want to make sure that you maintain certain distance between the equipment and the product or the floor or the people, you could use that. And I know that proximity sensor was used in the food industry for COVID tracing, so that you have your social distancing through proximity sensor. Motion sensor. We know that pest control is one of the biggest challenge, and there are certain areas in the warehouse we can't access. We can integrate our motion sensor over there, and that is going to detect our pest activities. So similarly, there are lot of applications I can keep on going where we can integrate with our food safety software or food safety program, which can help us to give us early warnings. Next. So this is the case study I did for a company. Basically, it's a sauce making company. They have to check the temperature at various stages throughout the process. And let's look at the number crunching. Next. So at receiving, if I'm doing receiving temperature check, or at steaming per batch, roasting, maturation, heat treatment. If I spend 30 minutes or 30 minutes at each activities, or 1 hour for the heat treatment activities, and again, these numbers are from a real case study. Next, so the total time I'm spending per day, 3 hours. Total time per week, 15 hours. Total time per year, 780 hours. And if I'm spending $15 per hour, I'm spending $11,700 per year just to monitor the temperature. And imagine how much the IoT-enabled data logger cost. A couple of $100. We can have real-time alert, real-time notifications. This is where I see a huge cost-saving opportunities by switching to a tech-enabled food safety program. Next. So blockchain, we all hear about the blockchain. I would not go in details about the blockchain, but as you know that FDA had a challenge for tech-enabled traceability program, and they are encouraging blockchain. Why blockchain? We have digital transparency. We will be able to trace real time. Think about the recall we had with E. coli. Had we used, if not the similar to blockchain, a digital version of our record keeping, we should have able to go back to the Roman lettuce in real time, not in weeks. So that's the power of blockchain in terms of traceability and transaction between two trusted parties or non-trusted parties. Next, that's something we spoke about that. Let's Walmart trace study. So mangoes to source, it took 6 days before application of the blockchain. And by using blockchain, they were able to trace within 2.2 seconds. Next. There are already industry adopting blockchain-enabled traceability. That is something, as you can see, Walmart, Albertson, Dole, Kroger, Nestle, Tyson, the big guys are already working on a tech-enabled, blockchain-enabled traceability platform. Next. Okay, so artificial intelligence, right? You know that we hear that FDA has launched the new era of smarter food safety, and that's where they are encouraging technology service provider like us to work with food safety, to build some food safety solutions so that the cost of food safety can be minimized and we can make the products safer in the supply chain. FDA did a work with artificial intelligence in their sampling program, and they were able to enhance more than 100% findings of food safety contamination during the sampling program. Next, that's a conclusion. So as I said in the beginning that we have moved from invention of wheels to self-driving cars. So when technology can enable many industry to become smarter and more cost-effective, productive, why not with our food safety? Why not with our SQF system? That's all from my side. Thank you.
Bravo, Prasant. Bravo. You know what, that cost analysis? I mean, I think the stat was $11,700 per year per person saved. That's wild. That's huge. The numbers are there. Let's give it up for Prasant again in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And our leadership series, it continues with our final session of our lunch bites today, food safety and sustainability, using the SQF quality code to drive a culture of commitment with the one, the only Frank Schurz of SES Global Services. Welcome to the stage, Frank.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Yeah, you're glad there's only one of me. At least that's what most of my peeps tell me anyway. So glad to be here, and glad to be able to talk about food safety and sustainability. Yesterday during Lunch Bites, and I hope you had a good time with Lunch Bites yesterday as I did. Nice to be able to listen and eat and drink at the same time and learn a bunch of stuff. So yesterday, Chris Middleton kind of headed up some initial discussion on sustainability when he was talking about, all the different measurements around sustainability and how it might impact the food safety programs, the good and the bad on that. I'm going to take a little bit step further and talk about how to integrate sustainability systems into both your quality systems and your food safety systems, obviously, that are built on SQF or other systems that you might have. And in doing so, I think it might speak to even what Prasant was just talking about in terms of being efficient in what you do. So efficiency also not in terms of how you measure it, because there's lots of measurements that come out of sustainability as well, but also how you set your system up. And so there are lots of similarities between the quality code and risk management and risk assessment in food safety and obviously quality, in the quality code that SQF has. But it's very similar to some of the things you do for sustainability. And obviously with sustainability being front and center in so much of the supply chain now, and your customers and your brand owners, it's falling on the SQF practitioner many times to say, hey, you've done food safety, you do quality, you can do sustainability as well. And you, as the similarly been done in food fraud and food defense, you become the catch-all, and you truly are the heroes. If we want to link back to what was talked about yesterday, you're the heroes for your companies if you have to take this on. It doesn't make it any easier. So what I want to do is just maybe provide some thought. This is a thought leadership series, so I want to think some thought on how you might be able to blend your food safety and quality systems in with sustainability as a form of managing it. Because it's a little bit different, it'll be a different thing. And it might be somebody else in your organization that's doing sustainability. We see that a lot as well. At SCS, we do a lot of certification, obviously, in food safety and quality through different programs, SQF being one of them, but we also are very front and center in the sustainability space. And so we see a lot of that sustainability work being done, and sometimes it's done in a vacuum from food safety and quality, and you end up duplicating things in many ways. And so I want to present a couple things to think about in terms of how you might approach it, get some synergy around those sustainability things, elements, and also the process of working through quality, food safety, and sustainability, and how that nets out in your program. So, okay, let's move on to the next slide then. So what I want to talk, I kind of chunked it out into a couple different sessions. I want to look at the global reporting systems, because there's a lot of similarities in there. So knowing where these requirements come from, whether the food safety, quality, in this case, sustainability. So looking at that. Within those reporting systems, the standards of practice that we're expected to undertake. Now, they are standards of practice. They're not prescriptive, nor should they be, because you still need to make them fit in within your organization. And then we kind of roll it into the system elements of SQF, not specifically, but in general terms, especially around the quality code, because the quality code is very unique to the food industry. It's a great application. It dovetails nicely with food safety. We can use the same synergy with sustainability and looking at the elements of that, so that we want consistency, or as we do with food safety and quality, we want consistency in how we look at sustainability, the different metrics in there, and obviously the management of those elements as we look for different certifications, different measurements and metrics that we're feeding into our supply chain to show how we're being sustainable. And that varies from sector to sector and company to company. Obviously, measurement is important in food safety. It's critically important in quality, and it is in sustainability as well. How we're measuring, what we're measuring, how we're reporting it, all those sorts of things. So, next slide, please. Okay, so let's start with the global reporting system. Some of this will be new to you if around the sustainability side, on the food safety side and quality side, shouldn't be new. So where we have the Global Food Safety Initiative to provide a global oversight and benchmarking process for food safety, there is something similar on the sustainability side called the Global Reporting Initiative. Both of these reporting systems are internationally recognized, which is very important. So you want credibility. We want credibility. So when you choose to get certified to SQF, you have credibility because it's SQF benchmarked. So all your customers or your brand owners are aware of that, and they're not going to question you on that. The same thing on the sustainability side, using the Global Reporting Initiative as a basis for what you're going to measure and how you're going to do that. On the GFSI side, it's specific to food safety. On the GRI side, it's specific to environmental, social, and sustainability factors. So all of those things are in there. Obviously, sustainability has some environmental and a lot of environmental aspects to them. So those terms and usage within GRI are all laid out for you. On GRI, they are sector specific, as they are in GFSI for food. So in this instance, GRI, you look under food and agriculture for those types of metrics that you would be looking to do under sustainability. And with GFSI, we have a benchmarking process for consistency of application from program to program. In GRI, it's a little bit different. They don't do benchmarking, but they do provide the expectations around how you would report into a global reporting system, because a lot of that feeds into different supply chain initiatives on reducing, say, greenhouse gas emissions, or carbon credits, or other types of metrics. And so that's critical in terms of being able to report that in, because it feeds into a whole bunch of other different metrics that people are collecting. So credibility is key on doing that. So let's set that up with a global reporting system. To the next slide, please. And so within those GRI and GFSI, we have some different standards of practice. In GFSI, there are food sector specificities, so they have the different scopes, and then that translates obviously into the food sector categories that SQF has. I'm going to stick with food safety, and then I'll move over to sustainability. In food safety, obviously the expectations are to manage biological, chemical, and physical hazards. So that's stated what those expectations are and how we manage those things, and they're measured through your food safety plan and your GAPs or your GMPs. For the Global Reporting Initiative, again, we have a food and agriculture specific metrics in there. These expectations are for any environmental, sustainable risks. Should say sustainable, not sustainability risks. Although I guess you could have sustainability concerns in food safety if they're caused by chemical, but that's not what I meant there. So little typo. So they give those expectations, but they are again specific to food and agriculture. So in agriculture, some of those environmental sustainability risks in say regenerative agriculture, and the use of growing crops that are capturing carbon and crop rotation. So those are very, very specific things that can be measured, particularly in agriculture. In the food side, water usage, greenhouse gas emissions, energy usage are huge, but also too is the impact of all those inputs into there. So they look at all of those sorts of things, or they lay them out for you to choose. They don't tell you which ones to use. But they do carry it forward and talk about measurement and reporting expectations. Next slide, please. So how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this in terms of a management system? So we're going to look at a couple of the different elements of the system elements as we talk about in SQF, and more specifically, we'll go into the quality plan and what the sustainability folks call materiality assessment. So we'll start with management commitment. Very similar. Resources, management review, those resources that you're going to allocate to sustainability would need to be known. So management needs to know how we're going to do that, and whether and how much it's going to cost and who's going to do it. And then you can bring your sustainability program into the management review process the same way that you would look at food safety and quality. On the supplier program, you look at food safety and quality in your suppliers and your requirements to risk assess them, and then based on the risk, look at a monitoring program to make sure that they're supplying you with the products that you have and they meet your specifications. With the GRI, the risk reporting in there as well. So that you can, if you're looking at your supplier, you're going to want to know the impact that your supplier has on your sustainability programs, how they might affect that. They have different types of levels of responsibility for that. So that dovetails well. So your supplier program and how you look at them from food safety and quality, you'll also be looking at them from a sustainability side, depending again on what you're measuring for sustainability. So a good linkage there. On the measurement side, I'll come back to the quality plan in the next slide, that the SOPs for food safety, quality, operations include monitoring, corrective action, and verification documentation. Obviously, if it's operational, it'll have effect and could have an effect on your sustainability. So you can embed certain practices that you're going to need to do on a day-to-day basis to get to your goals around sustainability. So those same sort of operational metrics and quality types of SOPs that you have specifically within your operations, and what the either farm workers are doing or people in the plant are doing. You can now embed your sustainability stuff. No need to rehash that or recreate the wheel, so to speak, but you can definitely do it within those SOPs. Next slide, please. So let's look at the materiality assessment versus the quality plan. This is really where, like your quality plan and like your food safety plan, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is what you when you establish these risk assessment processes, which is what they are. They set the stage so that you can do it continually. So similar with food safety and quality plans, that you establish them, you establish a routine review, you have a systematic approach. HACCP is a systematic approach to looking at food safety. Your quality plan built on HACCP principles is a systematic approach to doing that. You have a process flow, a team of people that look at it. You look at threat identification and risk assessment for CQPs and CPs, and then you manage them. So there's a process to that. With the materiality assessment, it's somewhat similar. You identify stakeholders. So your stakeholders are going to be your brand owners, your customers, your suppliers, and so you identify what's important to them around sustainability, because you need to align with them. So that's a little bit different than establishing a quality team, because it's internal. There's a lot more external look at stakeholders, and that includes boards of directors if you're a public company, all those sorts of things. So identifying the stakeholders, and then you do an outreach with them and say, what's important to you? What certain metrics? So do I need to look at water usage? Is that important to you? Greenhouse gas emissions, recyclability, all those sorts of things. So you have a stakeholder identification, you have an outreach to them, and then you identify and rank the risks. And so that's a risk assessment process. It's very similar to the quality threats or the food safety hazards, where you identify hazards. It's one of the first steps in HACCP. First step in where are those hazards, or in this case, those risks in sustainability? Again, back to those important things that your stakeholders done. So we identify them, and then you do a survey, which is back to where in the supply chain, who has what, collect the survey information, what are the metrics, and then you analyze those metrics. It's very similar to Dr. Deming's Plan, Do, Check, Act, where the stakeholder outreach is planning, you're doing some identification, you're analyzing stuff, and then you're going to act on it with your critical SOPs or standard operating practices and manage it. So it's a very similar process in terms of setting it up, some steps to the process. And again, the importance of that is that if you do the steps properly and in sequence, in totality, you'll get a more robust outcome, rather than saying, oh, I've got to go and reduce my water. Well, you don't know that until you have gone through this process and say, hey, water reduction and water use for what I do and for my supply chain is important. So we got to measure it better, and we got to put some processes in place and some lines in the sand to say how we're going to improve that. So it can and it should be set up as in a management system, very similar to your quality and HACCP plans and the metrics out of there, and linked into your management system around how your measurement, who's doing it, how are you documenting, verification, validation on those sustainability metrics are the same process as it would be under your food safety and your quality program. So because of the commonality between the two, who's doing it. So if you have a sustainability manager or leader and you have a food safety one, it's critically important that they talk together. I've seen some roles in some major corporations where sustainability and quality are now under all the same management team. So that, again, the outcome of that and how you do it and the synergies you get out of that would be evident. And with that, you're going to get cost savings, you're going to get efficiency, and a whole bunch of other things. You're going to get consistency in how you might even get them certified with looking at the same management system. So lots of benefits to doing it similarly and within the management system versus separate management systems. And again, the process that GRI proposes And the process that GFSI proposes allows you to do that. So those mechanisms and those process steps are already there. And I really would encourage you to look at that as you're embarking on sustainability, if it's within your purview to do that, or if you can influence that within your existing organization. I would encourage you to do that as well, since that would be a benefit to you. Next slide, please. Okay, so so I want to just wrap this up with, some of the requirements for success as you're merging these food safety, quality, and sustainability programs. And some of this is a repeat of what I've said before, just trying to pull it together with four bullet points to give you something to walk away with. So build on management system and practices in place from your own food safety and quality systems. You already have a lot of those systems in place. If they're well integrated into your operations, these wouldn't be extra ones. Maybe some specificity around that, but for the most part, you already have those systems and practices in place. So don't recreate the wheel, build on it because you already know that it works. If you're already certified, which most of you are, in food safety and quality, you can gain that experience from those certifications and apply it to whatever sustainability certifications or social compliance certifications, if it's in the worker or labor area, or environmental certifications. So encourage you to do that. Like with food safety quality, ensure adequate people resources, time, and information, and add it to that sustainability management system. So that's where the management commitment piece comes in. It can't be, well, Frank can do that. He's the SQF practitioner. Just, layer on the sustainability. He's got broad shoulders. He'll be able to do that. Maybe not, but a lot of times with all these extra things, it does require those additional resources to make that work. Ensure you have that systematic risk assessment and management process in place, and that you go back to it every time. Don't deviate from it. Build it right the first time, and then move it as you move the goalposts on sustainability. If they change because of your supply chain or sometimes regulation, in many cases it happens in food safety. It can happen on the sustainability side too. So build on that. So build that good risk assessment and management system for sustainability, and then stick to that. And then lastly, ensure your measurement and metrics align with risk assessment and reporting mechanisms. Use that risk assessment process to tell you what to measure. It will, if it's done correctly, it will tell you that. I've seen many times people ask about quality. Well, what do I have to measure? Well, your quality plan tells you that. It tells you what your critical points, quality points are, and your control points are. That's what you have to measure, and do that well. There are lots of other things that we measure in food safety and quality. There will be lots of other things that you measure in sustainability, but you don't have to measure all of them. Your risk assessment process will tell you that. So again, go back to that process. It will tell you what to measure, and then you can, look what presented. If you can do it through smart devices, wherever that might be, that's going to improve the accuracy. It's going to improve the amount that you can do that. Feed them into a lot of different data acquisition systems that are out there, and then into your reporting mechanisms, so that it can be a continual process of reporting, and then going back and improving on what you do and how you do it to get to where you want to go, which is making safe product, a quality product, and doing it sustainability, if that's your goal as an organization. Next slide, please. No, there is no next slide, but because I thought I had my contact information. So you can get a hold of me. I'm glad to talk to you about your current application, what you're thinking of, with some helpful hints around how to do that. That's not a problem. SCS Global Services can help you with. We have a great team on the sustainability consulting side, and then on the certification side, and obviously on the food safety side and quality side with SQF certification. So look forward to talking to any or all of you in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Frank. Let's give it up for Frank again in the chat. Frank, I think notepads were being scribbled on pretty furiously. There was so much content, and thanks for being an open book, sharing your contact info with everybody too. Let's hear it for everybody. Tracy, Prasant, Frank, thank you so much for sharing your lunch with us. And be sure to connect with our speakers. You can do that by visiting the attendees tab. And listen, folks, they are up here on the stage freely sharing their knowledge, their info, their best practices, and of course their solutions too. So don't be shy. And as we roll right into the next series of lunch and leadership sessions, we've got our incredible 5x5s. Now this, you're not even going to believe it. We've got educational sessions, we've got Ask the Expert sessions, and these 5x5s, well, it's 5 minutes, 5 slides, fast info. You're not going to want to miss it. Happening right here, 1 p.m. Eastern. So I'll definitely see you there. While we're at it, take a look at this afternoon's educational sessions. We've got some great ones, some post Q&As as well scheduled, so you get that one-on-one time, all your questions answered. And then on top of it, well, check out Denise Webster's session. That's happening at 3:30 this afternoon, Unlocking the Secret to SQF. That one's going to be a popular one. And then, of course, we've got a happy hour. I mean, listen, y'all. Fun, networking, prizes. I want to see you there. We're talking Schlepperty, bingo, trivia. We've even got a beat the clock game for all of you fast moving folks out there, happening right after Denise's and the other 3:30 p.m. sessions. So join us, 4:40 p.m., happy hour, networking, prizes. But all right, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll see you at the 5x5s happening at 1 p.m. Eastern.